And welcome back to a brand new episode of the Penscast Recap Show. It is myself, Robbie, here. We're joined by Snail. We have a double header to recap, a West Coast double header, since that's why we're doing it a few days post game here. But we have a game against the Canucks on Tuesday and a game against the Kraken on Thursday to talk about. But before we get into the details of that, Snail, how you doing on this first weekend in the month of March?
A little banged up, a little hungover. Had the Kraken
Ooh,
game I went to 2 nights ago, and then a good friend of mine's birthday party was last night, and it was somewhat of
yeah.
it kind of turned into almost like a high school reunion. But
Ah,
I'm a team guy. I'm here. I'm ready. Let's talk some Penguins hockey. A tale. It's really two
yeah,
totally different showings by the
yeah,
Penguins to start out this West Coast road trip. The Canucks, I must say that I don't know how many of us felt going into it. I know we're on the positivity train for this team right now, but they're an amazing team. They're a dominant team right now. I believe they're President's Trophy bound at this point. Well
they're
in the
yeah they're in the pole position right now. Yes.
lead for that, and then you have a team that, uh, ironically, sometimes called Pittsburgh West, in the Seattle Kraken, kind of in the same position that the Penguins are in. Ironically, they're in very similar positions standing wise, and yeah, we'll get into the scoring and all that. But I had boots on the ground that game,
Yep.
and uh, wow, I don't know. Just kind of a lot left to be desired by the Penguins going into that one or coming out of that one, but they got a chance to redeem themselves tonight. It is March the 2nd. They're in Calgary, I believe, tonight. Um, so, anyways, let's get into the scoring and talk about these two games because honestly, there's a lot to talk about
Yeah.
in both of these games here.
Yeah. So we'll start with the early of the two games here. Back on the 27th, the Penguins were in Vancouver to take on the Canucks, a very good Canucks team, as we said. Um, this game started off. The Penguins came out on fire in this game. Were playing very well, but at the 10-minute mark, the switch flipped, and at 10:23, it was the Canucks breaking the ice and getting on the board first. Nils Hoglander gets his 18th of the year from Tyler Myers and Ilya Mikheyev. It's 1-0 Vancouver, and it just gets worse from there for the Penguins as Brock Besser, his 34th of the year on the power play. An assist from JT Miller, who we'll mention again later, and Philip Hronik um, makes it 2-0, and that's where the score would stay after two. And you're feeling pretty dispirited at this point. The vibes are giving off a blowout loss here, but credit to the Penguins, they put their heads down and they fight back. Early in the second period, 2:13 in, Ricard Raquel gets his seventh of the year from Sidney Crosby, and it is 2-1 Vancouver, and there is some life. And then at 9:36 on the power play, it is Ricard Raquel, his second of the game and eighth of the year. Another assist from Crosby, and Evgeny Malkin gets in on the action as well. It's 2-2. You're feeling good, but less than 30 seconds later, the power play, which um, uh, came through huge. Um, Gives it right back. A shorthanded goal by JT Miller. He reaches the 30 goal mark with this tally at 10:05. Elias Pettersson and Thatcher Demko, the goaltender, uh, with the assist, and it's 3-2, and all the air is sucked out of that comeback effort. And at this point, again, maybe thinking that that is it, but in the third period, trailing 3-2, Lars Eller gets number 11 of the season at 9:45 from Valtteri Puustinen and Chris Letang, 3-3, and that's how it remained through regulation. And these two teams went to overtime the last time they played each other, and the Canucks came out on top in Pittsburgh. This time the Penguins flipped the script. Erik Karlsson gets his eighth of the year after some great work by him on the blue line. He gets rewarded, bearing a rebound off a shot by Lars Eller, who gets the primary assist. Riley Smith gets the secondary assist. The Penguins win 4-3. They leave Vancouver with maybe the grittiest but most unlikely victory of the season, to this point. And at this time, it just a tremendous win by this hockey team.
Tremendous win by the team. That's how you want to start off a road trip. Them going on like a 4-game road trip out west or whatever, where they're starting off with Vancouver. It's like, oh man, that's a tough first game, but they handled it. They got it done in overtime, which this team has not been able to do very often. And your star comes through in Erik Karlsson. Um, there's a lot to break down here. First of all, this Vancouver team, former Penguins assistant coach Rick Tocchet, they have this team playing an aggressive brand of hockey. You've got a guy like Niels Höglander's like a fourth liner, third liner. He's got 18 goals on the season. You got Brock Besser. He was I don't know where he is in the Rocket Richard race anymore. But I mean 34 goals. He started out really hot. He last year they were talking about trading him. JT Miller 30 goals on the year. I mean, kills penalty. He's on the power play. He's really brought the best out of this team that's underperformed in the past few seasons. So a tall task for the Penguins, but they get on the board with Rickard Rakell, top 6 player. You're paying him $5 million. He had 6 goals on the season. He scores 2, 1 on the even strength, 1 on the power play. The power play came through for the Penguins. Even when it comes through just a little bit, just 1 for whatever, 2 for whatever on the power play, they get a lot of calls. You know, this isn't a team that never gets on the power play. You know what I'm saying? I think when you have the star power of Sidney Crosby, you have Malkin, you're going to get calls every once in a while, and they need to capitalize. They did. Good to see Ricard up to 8 goals. Down year for him, man, but comes through on the power play. And then, yeah, you see it all in this game. The shorthanded goals did they give up the most shorthanded goals on the season? Are they a team that, do you know
Penguins?
where? Yeah.
I actually don't have that on me, but it feels like they are. If they're not, they're very close.
If they're not giving up the most, they give up probably the most shorthanded chances.
Yeah.
The second JT Miller kind of flipped that puck over Letang's head and it was a race, I had that feeling in my stomach. It's just, oh no, he's gonna bury this, isn't he? It's just how it's gone this season. But then Lars Eller, secondary scoring. Lars Eller as a third line center on a good team. You're sitting pretty with him as a third line center. He's got a great shot. He's a great pro, and you see him. You see him come through with that to tie it up and get this game into overtime. It's everything you want out of it. I mean, it's got the good, the bad, and the ugly. Honestly, for a Penguins win, Erik Karlsson coming through, doing Karlsson things, head bobbing, dancing, right on the blue line, making your heart flutter like Jesus Christ. But he ends up coming through on a rebound too. So, Robbie, honestly, yeah, this was a game of ups and downs, but the Penguins showed resilience, something that they haven't shown, I think, enough this season. And they come away with a big dub, and then 2 points, and it's not again against a team that's not in the Metro, so you're okay with giving up a point, leaving a point on the table there for Vancouver or whatever. But God, they needed that.
Yeah, absolutely needed that in the worst way, especially to kick off this long road trip. Again, it's tough going out there. You don't get a lot of time off in between these games. Yeah, you just needed a win out of that game, and that's what you got. And at this point, the Penguins have 3 wins in a row coming out of Vancouver. So, again, another like sudden vibe shift with this team. After a more recent, I guess you could say, struggle, but they get the 2 points in, yeah, a very unlikely way on the road ice against a team like the Canucks. Yeah, just nose to the grindstone, got it done. And the big guys come through. Rickard Rakell gets 2 goals. Even your depth scoring, Lars Eller's there. Erik Karlsson gets the game winner, kind of after a week of writers trying to convince us that he was actually not good anymore. He goes out there and shows them. So, yeah, just a big win to get this road trip started and kind of keep this rule going that they had going. And I guess a win like that kind of sets everybody up for a little bit of disappointment, which is what we got on Thursday night uh, in the Emerald City with Snell in attendance. Just a bad performance. Just it felt like they had nothing. Grubauer had the kind of mojo going that he wasn't going to be beat no matter what they threw at him, but just a very uninspired performance that kind of ended this win streak and brought everybody back to earth a little bit.
Yeah, so on this with this Kraken game, it honestly, Grubauer. I'm gonna say Grubauer and Jari both played really well. Like, I don't know if you saw the first goal. That was such a Jari in net type of goal. I mean, is there a goaltender that's been scored on in weirder ways than Jari, with the pucks that have gone up in the air, pop flies, and just like landed on his back and fallen into the net? You remember when who's that guy, the captain for the Islanders? Not uh Anders, is it Anderson? No, what's his name?
The current captain for the
Current
Islanders,
captain for the
is
yeah.
it not? Is it not Matt Barzell?
No, no.
Um,
God, what
Anders
is his?
Lee.
Anders Lee. Anders Lee scored that goal on Jari where the puck was sitting while he was doing this the snowman, or not, the snow angel. The puck landed on his pad and he just like one timed it off his pad. And
Uh,
again, just I feel like Jari is just always on the losing side of these just like really fluky goals that happen, and it happened in the first period against the Kraken. Aside from that, I thought again Jari played pretty well, but you can't win a hockey game if no one scores. I'm gonna be honest with you. When I was in the building, not a great game from the forwards or defense. On
yeah.
like the goalies were the main story of this. there was a lot of there were a couple instances in this game where I was watching. It was like a game of ping pong. The puck was just turned over and then immediately turned back over and then immediately turned back over. Where there were some chuckles in the crowd. People were just like, "Oh man," they're just like playing
Yeah.
catch out there.
Yeah, from I didn't see the whole game, but it definitely felt like there was just a very lackadaisical game played, kind of by both sides. One side gets the bounces and the other side doesn't, and the Kraken were able to capitalize on those. As you said, the weird bounce that led to Oliver Bjorkstrand scoring at 12:25 of the first period, his 15th of the year from Alex Wenberg and Will Borgen, and that score held up basically until the last quarter of the third period, where Alex Wenberg put the game on ice with a power play goal. His ninth of the year from Kaylor Yamamoto and Ellie Tolvanen. It's 2-0 at that point in Grubauer. Again, it's a game Grubauer wasn't going to be beaten, and you get games like that. It just felt like it wasn't one of those games where the Penguins threw everything in the kitchen sink at Grubauer and he was just better. It felt like a lot of non-threatening scoring or shots, but credit to Grubauer, you still got to stop the ones that come on net. But I mean, overall, just felt like a very like feckless kind of performance by the Penguins in this game. And not that Seattle was much better; they just kind of got the bounces and capitalized on them.
Yeah, I'm not going to be. I mean, if it was all Grubauer in this game, I'm not going to give a ton of props to the Seattle Kraken because they weren't exactly looking dangerous either. The Penguins weren't looking dangerous at all. You want to talk about high scoring chances? I thought the first power play they were on, where they were feeding Raquel a few times with the one timer, they were really snapping it around. I thought that was the most dangerous they looked all night. Aside from that, I looked like a couple people were out there that came to play. I thought that the line with I think it's the makeshift third line right now that's got Emil Benstrom, Puljujarvi, and Lars Eller on it. I thought they looked like they were going for a good portion of the game. Of course, Sid's always going, but other than that, yeah, not very dangerous, not very threatening looking. Really uninspired considering they're coming off of a big win in Vancouver just a couple of nights before. I was hoping to see a lot more jump in their game, but it's the NHL. Whether it's a good team, bad team, the Kraken, I wouldn't even say they're not even like a bad team right now. There's no real easy 2 points. And a little disappointing showing by the Penguins coming to town, but like we've mentioned here, the goaltenders are allowed to play too. Teams are allowed to,
Yeah,
despite expectations, they're allowed to show up and play. And When you've got the star power you have, it's really unacceptable to score zero goals in a game like this. At times, it felt like it was like a midnight beer league hockey game.
Yeah, very odd kind of vibe to this game, but that is what it is. Not a great not a great performance, but one that you can hopefully shake off and kind of just move past because it's one you're going to want to forget. All in all, the power play not good again, but that is what it is, I guess. As for what comes next, we are recording this on Saturday, March the 2nd. The Penguins are in Calgary this evening for the part one of a doubleheader with the Alberta teams. Tonight's game is at 10 o'clock Eastern time. Then they go right to Edmonton for a game on Sunday the 3rd at 9 o'clock Eastern. And that wraps up the Western road trip here. They come back home on Tuesday for a game against the Columbus Blue Jackets, and then on Thursday against the Washington Capitals and Snail. I hate to say it, a lot will depend on what happens this weekend, but almost this weekend is null and void to that. But I'm going to call those two games 4 points. You got to have it.
Absolutely. We talked about this, I think the last game recap we did. You're hoping that they go, we were hoping they'd go 50% on this road trip, correct?
Yes.
And
I'd say at best, at worst, 4 points.
At worst. That game in Seattle, that's gonna sting if they go 0-4 in these next two games here. But let's look at this. Calgary, they're not going to roll over and die yet. They traded Chris Tanev. I think they're selling off some assets, but they're not far out of a playoff spot. I think that this is a competitive team right now. Like I just said about the Kraken, I mean, teams are allowed to get up and play. You're going to face a good goalie in Markstrom. But the Penguins beat the Canucks. The Penguins can play. We know what they're capable of. The power play has been just abysmal all season. If they're gonna get some calls, they're gonna need to capitalize on the power play. They're gonna need Huberdeau starting to kind of play like the $10 million player that they're expecting him to be. They've got Kuzmenko, like I'd mentioned, Markstrom. They've got Hanifin. They got a decent back end. They've got Kadri. They've got a plethora of depth players. Like this team, they're not going to be easy. But the Penguins, big penalty kill. Let's get the penalty kill heated up again. Power play needs to start clicking. Depth scoring. Depth needs to come through. Depth, defensively responsible. All those little things. 2 points shouldn't be a big ask against Calgary is what I'm trying to say tonight.
Yeah.
And then you've got Edmonton in Seattle right now. They're playing the Kraken as we speak. My buddy's at the game. Skinner's in net. You're going to get, it's not like they're traveling across the whole country, but you're going to get Edmonton coming home off a back-to-back. You're going to see Calvin Pickard in net. You're going to get their backup. And who knows how they play him tonight, how the Kraken are playing him right now. But you know what? If you can't get the Oilers in a better spot than off a back-to-back with their backup. Like that's the biggest chance you have to beat a powerhouse in the Oilers. I don't see why they can't take, maybe force Edmonton to overtime. I'm not expecting a whole lot because we all know what Edmonton is capable of with their superstars up front. But, I mean, come on. 2 points tonight, maybe a point tomorrow. We'll take that. It's almost, you need that.
Yep. Yeah. So you definitely need at least 2 points out of this weekend doubleheader. 3 would be perfect, but beggars can't be choosers when you're the Penguins, I guess. So you got to get what you can, and it's vitally important that you get at least a win out of this weekend just to kind of set things up for coming back home and another big week ahead.
Curious, Robbie, who would you start in net tonight? Would you go Nedeljkovic or Jari, and then who would you give to the Oilers tomorrow?
Well, it's already been decided that Tristan Jari is getting the start against Calgary, which
Okay.
I would assume leaves Nedeljkovic to get the start against the Oilers, and which could very well be his final start in a Penguins uniform.
You think so? You think he's getting traded, eh?
Honestly, with Jacob Markstrom off the trade market, I think that Nedeljkovic is slowly climbing up as most one. He'll be a high. His price is rising.
Yeah,
Just because like some of the bigger goalie names, Fleury and Markstrom, are both off the market.
that's true.
So I think he wasn't priority number one with guys like that possibly out there. So yeah, I think that he's definitely I'd say greater than 50% chance to see him moved before the deadline on Friday.
Interesting. I'd hate to see him go. It's been a luxury to have him as a backup and starter
Yeah,
at times.
yeah. Again, and a lot of that also could depend on what the Penguins do this week. If they would find a way to
Take 3 of 3
take, well,
of the next games.
they have 4 games before the trade deadline. If they would go, let's say 7 points,
4-0.
Yeah, 4-0. 4-0. I mean, best case scenario is obviously 4-0. But even if they take, let's say they win 3, lose 1 in overtime, take 7 of 8 points with another big stretch coming up next week. Yeah, I think that maybe that changes the dynamic and
Really
of
forcing
what happens on
Dubas's
Friday.
hand, right? Like you're
Yeah,
really putting him
yeah,
in a position to be like, sheesh.
yeah. Obviously, if they would end up losing every game between now and Friday, I think it would be a huge, about as big as a sell-off as the Penguins have had in a really long time. But if you go out there and put up 7 or 8 points, you're really, really putting Kyle Dubas in kind of a bind, I guess.
Yeah, and that's what the Penguins are trying to do. You know, Kyle Dubas took over this job with a lot higher expectations than I think what he's dealing with right now.
Yeah.
And it's the player's job right now to really force Kyle Dubas to be as patient as possible with this club. And you know, they have the deadline, it's a deadline. It's by the 8th. You don't have to move anyone prior to that. If teams are
Yep.
pressuring or calling, it's not these general managers' job to do any sort of favors in this league. And this
Absolutely.
Penguins team has playoff aspirations. There never was an expectation this year to be a seller or be like Washington last year and sell off a few pieces but still remain competitive. I know that they've been kind of trying to toe this line of getting younger while simultaneously staying competitive. That's so tough to do. It's never really proven to work too well in this league. I think the best examples we've seen that done are like LA, who actually were non-competitive for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But you know, like Dubas, I'm on Dubas's side. When you never bet against Sidney Crosby, you never bet against those guys. Garrett, on the other hand, if they don't take 7 of 8 points in these next games, he wants the Penguins gone, I think.
Yeah, he is definitely out for blood, it feels like. But while we were recording, I actually looked up the shorthanded goal numbers from this season.
Oh no!
Right now, the Montreal Canadiens lead the league with 10 shorthanded goals against. The Penguins have 8, which is tied with 5 other teams for second most in the league. And it is the same number that the Penguins ended all of last season with. So
Not
they're
good.
probably going to exceed last season, I would think, with as much time or much game time as they have left. But the Penguins are currently, second or tied for second, I guess, in the NHL with 8 shorthanded goals against. Now, any guesses who may be the team with the least shorthanded goals against and how many they've given up? Just a little fun little way to end this episode.
Like, so this season, who has the least
amount of shorthanded goals against, and how many do you think that number is? It's one team. It is just no ties. It's one team.
Okay. I'm gonna go with Vegas.
That is incorrect.
Is it
Vegas
Philadelphia?
No, Philly's close. Philly has 3. Vegas has 4. It is actually the New York Islanders who've only given up 2 shorthanded goals this season.
2, really? And they've kind of strayed away from that defensive system that they've been known for, that lull you to sleep, boring brand of hockey.
Yeah, I was not expecting the New York Islanders to be on that list or that low, just because, again, they're not a great team. They've had their struggles this year as well. But, again, I guess it helps when you have Ilya Sorokin back there as well. And maybe we're just all used to the Penguins power play just being so objectively bad that it's kind of surprising. But it is the Penguins have 8. They are tied for second in the league with most shorthanded goals against. Montreal has 10 and they are the top team.
Well, that's tough. That's not a stat you want to be leading the league in.
No,
But just we watch these games, Robbie. It's not like it's any secret. Like every power play they have, I swear, each team they play against per power play, they get one quality scoring opportunity, a man down. Like it just seems to be it's a bad habit this team has right now, and
it is.
it's a nightmare to watch.
It
That
is.
power play when the power play isn't punishing teams like it should and you have the goals, you're up a man but you're all of a sudden reeling in your own end, hemmed in, and you can't get out of this. I mean, dude, it's just a bad look for this team, and I don't know I don't know if it's a Sullivan system thing. I don't know if it's a Reardon power play thing. I don't know if it's a personnel thing where they're focusing too much on, they got four forwards out there typically, and then you have either Carlson or Letang, who are rovers. Essentially, if they could play forward if they wanted, 100-point defenseman, Letang offensive minded. There's really no emphasis on D. It's tough to watch, but hey, you know what? The power play's been clicking a little better. Let's hope that they can find some consistency, because I think going forward, if the Penguins make the playoff, I don't think this is any secret either. If they're going to make the playoffs, the power play needs to become a strong, like one of their stronger points of their game, not just clicking average. It needs to become a punishing power play.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. They need it needs to just be more efficient. Like even a middle of the pack power play, the Penguins are probably securely in a playoff spot right now.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's been one of the, again, we can lament about the bottom six. It has not been great. It has been streaky, but if they had anything on that power play with all that talent they have, they are securely in a playoff position right now. Maybe even likely even threatening for a top 3 spot in the Metro Division. So yeah, very frustrating because it's been such a letdown. But I guess that is the nature of the beast. It's just very unfortunate that it's come to this.
Very unfortunate, but this team has all the talent in the world, and I think that I really liked that power play that we saw against Vancouver on the first unit. I believe it was Sid and Carlson, and I want to say it was Eller and maybe Puustinen. It was a much more blue collar first unit power play than what they've been going with this season so far. And it wasn't Pusti, it was Raquel, because he scored on that power play. Raquel, Eller, Sid, and then I don't care whoever else. Name a puck moving defenseman and whatever, someone to go fetch the puck. But I thought that power play looked the best and the most dangerous.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, I'd like to see some more shakeup with that. The penalty kill too, which has been a strong point for the Penguins this season. I think with Brian Rust being out right now, he's a pretty big part of that penalty killing unit. He adds a kind of a dual threat there. He's extremely valuable to this team. Him being out, the penalty kill needs to become more consistent as well. Special teams, man, it's been the bane of their existence. Yep. I feel like all season.
It has been, and well, that's all I got.
That's
Penguins,
all I got.
Yeah, Penguins are back in action, doubleheader this weekend, Saturday and Sunday before coming home for a short stint. But hey, we'll see where we're at when we meet up again next week. And again, this is deadline week now. Big decisions coming up for the Penguins. A lot will be determined how they play these next 4 games. Maybe depending on how things roll out, me and Snail can change things up a little bit and do a trade deadline recap show.
Yep.
Assuming the Penguins are active. If they're not, then might not be all that entertaining. But I think Snail and I can maybe sit down and do a trade deadline recap show, or if things are getting really excited.
Mile and Kyle's shoes type of show.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what we have planned for this week. We can always mix it up a little bit and get some different content out there for you. But I'm going to let Snell bring us home here. I'm Robbie, as always, but I'm going to toss it over to Snell to wrap us up here, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Really quickly, yeah, I think Robbie had mentioned, we got 4 games before the trade deadline. It's Calgary, Edmonton, Columbus, Washington. Again, just reiterating, I think what Robbie had brought up earlier. Edmonton's a complete wagon, but Calgary, Columbus, and Washington, come on, boys. let's get some points. You got no points on the table versus Columbus and Washington. Get greedy. That's all I'm saying. For Robbie Noggle, I am Snail. We will talk to you guys on the mailbag coming up Monday. Thank you.